There was a time when British lorries didn't ask permission to work. They rattled, smoked, leaked oil, and outlasted everything around them. They crossed war-scarred roads, hauled overloaded freight, and survived decades of abuse without software, sensors, or excuses. Today they're gone, not because they failed, but because the industry moved on too fast. These are 10 British lorries that weren't outdated, they were abandoned. And if they were reborn today, they'd embarrass modern trucks in ways nobody wants to admit. Number 1. Leyland Marathon. The Leyland Marathon was never just another truck rolling off a factory line. It was a symbol of pressure, industrial, political, and national. By the late 1970s, British truck manufacturing was fighting for survival, and the marathon was expected to do something almost impossible, prove that Britain could still compete with continental Europe in long-haul trucking. Built by Leyland Motors, the marathon was aimed squarely at the growing dominance of European lorries that promised comfort, efficiency, and modernity. But Leyland didn't chase luxury, they chased endurance. Underneath its square, no-nonsense cab was a truck engineered to last. The chassis was strong, the drivetrain proven, and the design philosophy brutally practical. This was a lorry meant to haul heavy freight across borders, not impress showroom visitors. Operators who gave it a fair chance discovered something important. The marathon could work, and work it did. Many marathons ran international routes across Europe, logging enormous mileage under punishing conditions. They weren't fragile, they didn't collapse under long-haul stress. When maintained properly, they proved just as capable as their foreign rivals. So why did the marathon fail commercially? Timing. British Leyland was collapsing under strikes, political interference, and financial instability. Confidence in British-built vehicles had already been damaged beyond repair. Even a capable lorry couldn't overcome a broken system behind it. But here's the part history rarely acknowledges. The trucks that survived proved themselves. Long after production ended, marathons were still hauling freight in secondary markets, often outlasting newer replacements. The Leyland Marathon deserves a comeback because it represents unfinished business. A modern marathon built with today's safety standards, but the same mechanical honesty would appeal to owner-operators who value durability over dashboards. It wasn't a bad lorry. It was a good lorry born into a bad moment. Number 2. ERF EC Series. If most trucks are designed by committees, the ERF EC series felt like it was designed by people who actually drove lorries for a living. Built by ERF Trucks, the EC series followed a philosophy that seems almost rebellious today. Don't reinvent what already works. Instead of proprietary engines and experimental systems, ERF chose proven components, Cummins engines, Eaton Fuller gearboxes, Rockwell axles, nothing exotic, nothing fragile, nothing unnecessary. The result was a lorry that earned respect, quietly. Drivers trusted the EC series because it behaved predictably. Fleet owners loved it because downtime was low and parts availability was excellent. Mechanics appreciated it because repairs didn't require special tools or factory-only diagnostics. These trucks weren't about refinement, they were about revenue. The EC series thrived in long-haul work, heavy freight, and fleet operations where reliability mattered more than image. They could be spec'd to suit almost any job, and many ran for decades with rebuilds instead of replacements. What ultimately killed ERF wasn't engineering failure, it was consolidation. As global manufacturers absorbed smaller brands, ERF's identity was erased. The trucks, however, kept working. Even today, surviving EC series lorries are remembered as some of the most honest trucks ever built in Britain. They didn't pretend to be anything they weren't, and that honesty made them durable. A modern ERF EC series, simple, modular, and driver-focused, would thrive in today's market, especially among operators tired of overcomplicated systems that fail expensively. This lorry deserves a comeback because it reminds the industry of a dangerous truth. Sometimes, less really is more. Number 3. Foden Alpha. The Foden Alpha didn't care about trends. It cared about punishment. Built by Foden Trucks, the Alpha represented the final evolution of a company that had always specialized in one thing: heavy work. These lorries were designed to haul abnormal loads, operate in construction zones, and survive environments that destroyed lighter trucks. Everything about the Alpha was overbuilt. The chassis was massive. The axles were designed for sustained load, not short bursts. The engines, often Cummins, were chosen because they thrived under constant stress. This wasn't a truck you bought for comfort. It was a truck you bought because failure wasn't an option. Drivers didn't describe Fodens as smooth or quiet. They described them as solid, predictable, unyielding. When Foden disappeared, the industry lost a manufacturer that built trucks specifically for Britain's real conditions: narrow roads, heavy loads, poor surfaces, and relentless work cycles. Modern trucks often struggle in those environments because they're designed for efficiency first, survival second. The Alpha deserves a comeback because heavy haulage hasn't disappeared. Only the trucks built specifically for it have. A modern Alpha, built with the same obsession for strength but updated safety standards, would dominate sectors that still demand real durability. The Foden Alpha wasn't refined. It was reliable, and that mattered more. Number 4. Albion Reiver. Before global manufacturers standardized truck sizes, Albion understood something crucial. Britain's roads are different. The Albion Reiver, built by Albion Motors, was designed for tight streets, narrow lanes, and regional work where maneuverability mattered more than horsepower figures. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't powerful. It was appropriate. Local councils, utility companies, and regional operators relied on Reivers because they fit Britain's infrastructure perfectly. They were easy to maintain, economical to run, and durable enough to survive daily abuse. These trucks disappeared not because they failed, but because the industry moved toward bigger, standardized designs that ignored local realities. Today, with urban logistics, congestion, and last-mile delivery becoming more important than ever, the Reiver suddenly makes sense again. Compact, robust lorries built specifically for urban Britain are exactly what modern fleets are missing. The Albion Reiver deserves a comeback because it solved problems the industry is still struggling with decades ago. Sometimes, progress isn't about moving forward. It's about remembering what already worked. Number 5. Bedford TM. The Bedford TM is one of the most unfairly judged lorries Britain ever produced. Built by Bedford Vehicles, the TM was not a weak truck, not an outdated one, and not a failure of engineering. Its real crime was something far worse in British industry: being competent without being celebrated. When the TM arrived, it was modern by any reasonable standard. It had a spacious cab, solid drivetrain options, and the kind of rugged mechanical layout that made sense for long-haul and export markets. Bedford didn't design the TM to be fragile or fashionable. They designed it to survive, and survive it did. Across the Middle East, Africa, and parts of Asia, Bedford TM lorries earned a reputation for toughness under extreme conditions: high heat, dust storms, poor fuel, minimal maintenance. These were environments that exposed weak designs quickly, and the TM kept going. Ironically, it was abroad where the Bedford TM proved its worth most clearly. Back home in Britain, it suffered from perception. Fleet buyers were already looking overseas, convinced that British trucks were yesterday's news. The TM was judged not on its performance, but on the badge it wore. That perception cost it dearly. Yet operators who actually ran TMs knew the truth. The chassis was strong. The mechanical systems were straightforward. Parts were accessible. Repairs were logical. It wasn't a lorry that tried to impress. It tried to endure. The Bedford TM deserves a comeback because it represents a missing category in modern trucking: export-grade toughness without unnecessary complexity. A modern TM designed for heat, dust, abuse, and neglect would be invaluable in today's global logistics world. It wasn't a bad lorry. It was simply ignored by the people who needed it most. Number 6. Scammell Crusader. Scammell never built normal trucks. They built machines for jobs other manufacturers quietly avoided. The Scammell Lorries Crusader was designed for work that didn't fit neatly into brochures. military transport, tank hauling, abnormal loads, and extreme heavy-duty operations where failure simply wasn't an option. This was a lorry born from necessity, not comfort. The Crusader didn't care about refinement or fuel efficiency. It cared about traction, strength, and survivability. Everything about it was engineered with margin. Frames that could handle twisting forces, drivetrains built for relentless torque, and components chosen for durability over elegance. Drivers didn't drive Crusaders casually. They trusted them. Because when you're moving something that outweighs your truck several times over, trust is everything. Modern logistics still requires vehicles like this, but they're increasingly rare. Today's heavy-haul trucks are often constrained by emission systems, electronic limitations, and designs that assume ideal conditions. The Crusader assumed nothing. It expected abuse. That's why it matters today. A modern Scammell Crusader, updated for safety but retaining its obsession with strength, would dominate military, infrastructure, and heavy transport sectors that still need uncompromising machines. The Crusader wasn't extreme for attention. It was extreme because reality demanded it. Number 7. Dennis Eagle. Early models. Before Dennis Eagle became synonymous with modern refuse collection vehicles, the company built municipal lorries that were brutally simple and extraordinarily durable. Early models from Dennis specialist vehicles were designed for one harsh reality. Municipal work destroys trucks faster than almost any other job. Stop-start cycles, heavy loads, inexperienced drivers, minimal sympathy, constant idling. Most trucks suffer under those conditions. Dennis lorries endured. They were mechanically simple, easy to repair, and built with the assumption that maintenance budgets would be tight and abuse would be constant. Instead of compensating with electronics, they compensated with material strength and straightforward design. That philosophy is largely gone today. Modern refuse trucks are packed with systems that improve efficiency, but also increase fragility. When something fails, entire vehicles can be sidelined. A modern Dennis built around the old philosophy, simplicity first, durability always, would be revolutionary today. Municipal fleets don't need more technology, they need more uptime. That's why these early Dennis lorries deserve a comeback. They solved problems that modern fleets are still fighting. Number 8. Leyland Roadtrain. The Leyland Roadtrain is remembered unfairly. Built by Leyland Motors, the Roadtrain entered a market already hostile to British trucks. Early issues damaged its image, and no matter how much the truck improved, public perception refused to recover. But the later Roadtrains told a different story. They were stronger, more reliable, and better engineered than their reputation suggested. Many operators who stuck with them found dependable lorries capable of serious work. The problem wasn't the machine, it was trust. Once trust is lost, even competence struggles to survive. The Roadtrain deserves a comeback because it represents a lesson modern manufacturing still hasn't learned. Perception can kill good engineering faster than failure ever could. A modern Roadtrain reborn without the baggage of the past would be judged on what it does, not what people remember. And that might finally give it the chance it never truly had. Number 9. Atkinson Borderer. The Atkinson Borderer didn't arrive quietly, but it all arrived honestly. Built by Atkinson Vehicles, the Borderer was never meant to be elegant. It was meant to survive work that destroyed lighter, more advanced trucks. Construction sites, quarries, heavy freight routes, places where steel flexes, frames twist, and weak engineering reveals itself quickly. Atkinson understood something fundamental about British haulage. Loads were heavy, roads were poor, and conditions were rarely ideal. So instead of designing for laboratory efficiency, they designed for reality. The Borderer's chassis was thick, rigid, and unapologetically overbuilt. Axles were chosen for strength rather than weight savings. Engines were selected for torque and longevity, not headline numbers. This was a lorry built to age slowly and visibly. Drivers didn't describe Borderers as comfortable. They described them as dependable, predictable, tough, and that distinction matters. Because when a lorry works in brutal environments, comfort becomes secondary to trust. Operators knew that a Borderer wouldn't surprise them with sudden failures. It would wear, it would signal problems early, and when repairs were needed, they were mechanical, not electronic mysteries. The Borderer disappeared not because it failed, but because the industry changed direction. Larger conglomerates absorbed independent manufacturers. Cost-cutting replaced over-engineering. Trucks became optimized for spreadsheets instead of punishment. But the work never went away. Heavy haulage, construction, and industrial transport still exist, and they still need trucks built with the same philosophy the Borderer embodied. A modern Atkinson Borderer, designed with contemporary safety standards, but the same obsession with structural integrity, would immediately earn respect in sectors that punish equipment daily. The Borderer deserves a comeback because it reminds the industry of something uncomfortable. Durability isn't old-fashioned. It's expensive, and that's why it disappeared. Number 10. Seddon Atkinson 400 Series. The Seddon Atkinson 400 Series wasn't just a lorry. It was a farewell. Built by Seddon Atkinson, the 400 Series represented one of the final attempts at independent British truck design before globalization and consolidation erased individuality from the industry. These lorries weren't revolutionary. They were practical. Designed for municipal work, construction, and regional haulage, the 400 Series focused on serviceability and strength. The layout was logical, the components were accessible, the engineering assumed the truck would be worked hard, maintained on tight budgets, and driven by multiple operators, and it worked. The 400 Series became a familiar sight in councils, refuse fleets, and industrial operations across Britain. They endured stop-start cycles, heavy loads, and constant abuse that would cripple more delicate machines. What made them special wasn't innovation, it was intention. Every design choice prioritized uptime, not appearance, not marketing appeal, just reliability. When Seddon Atkinson disappeared, the industry lost one of its last truly British approaches to truck building, one that valued function over form and longevity over trend. The 400 Series deserves a comeback because modern fleets are rediscovering the cost of complexity. Vehicles sidelined by electronic faults, entire fleets grounded for minor issues, escalating maintenance costs driven by systems no one asked for. A modern 400 Series, simple, robust, and modular, would be revolutionary precisely because it rejects excess. It would appeal to operators who don't want rolling computers. They want tools. This lorry matters because it marks the end of something important, a time when British trucks were built to serve work, not branding. And maybe that's exactly why it deserves to return. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.